Welcome back to the Real with Joseph Lappin. I am Joseph Lappin. Hope you guys are having a great weekend. Welcome on in, guys. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button for me. Everybody smash that like button for me on the way in. Help your boy fight the algorithms and help me grow my content. Share this video, share my content. I'd really appreciate it. And also leave a comment below. We've gotten some more comments. I've gotten some more comments recently on my show, on some feedback, such as my last video. And it's funny, you get some good ones and you get some people who just go crazy over your opinion about the game of football and about the Browns. And hey, man, this is shameful. And, you should be ashamed of yourself. Shake your head, all this. It's all good. It's okay. We love all you guys. And, it's not that serious to me. It's just a game at the end of the day. But it's not like we know these people personally. But, anyways, we appreciate the feedback. Anyways, I've actually had some really good dialogue with some really nice people. And, we got some people I think anybody's welcome to come join our live streams on the weekends. And when I drop the link, feel free to come join. Not sure when we're going to be going live this weekend. I'll figure it out. We'd like to tomorrow. Maybe Monday night instead. I don't know. We'll figure it out to recap the championship games. See what happens with the Lions from one of our panelists, Gergs, who was a Lions fan. So I'm sure he'll have a lot to say. But today's video, though, there's a lot of things going on in Berea this week. So far, the Browns have interviewed 5 offensive coordinators. And the title of today's show is, Should Kevin Stefanski Give Up Play Calling for Next Season? And my take on it is he should. And kind of going off my video on Monday, I think what's best for the Cleveland Browns and what's best for Deshaun Watson in 2024 and helping him get back to helping him as best you can get back to that elite form that we need him to be to win the Super Bowl. Why we traded for him, why we paid him that kind of money, is because you need him. We need that kind of quarterback. But in order to get him back to that, because he, before he came here, he was off for almost 700 days because of all the stuff off the field. Then his first year here, he gets suspended 12 games, comes off the street, and doesn't really have many reps. But also, too, I think then he gets hurt as well this year, which didn't help. But I also think as well, the system that we've been running doesn't fully fit his skill set. And I think that's also a big reason why he's not going to be able to get back to his form of what we've been doing. And also, to the lack of weapons. Outside of Amari Cooper at the receiver room, there hasn't been much. I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones was your number 2 in 2022. You traded him, and now he's just a special teams guy in Detroit. I don't think he's even playing there. And then this year, Elijah Moore's a nice player, but I don't think anybody could definitively say he's a number 2 receiver. I think he's a nice role player. Gives you a lot of versatility. He's a nice skill set. But outside of that, now David Njoku. By the way, I got my big water like always. Everybody watch my show. I always got this big water bottle here with some fresh, clean H2O. But anyways, that's not where we're at. But anyways, David Njoku really stepped up this year. I think David might be a borderline top 5 tight end in the league when he's at his best, because he's just so unique and dynamic, and he's basically a receiver as a tight end. But he is still a tight end, but you need receivers, and they haven't had that either. So, and now with Nick Chubb, we don't know what Nick Chubb's going to be when he comes back. And, there's some question marks there if he can be on the team next year. Some people are questioning that, which I think is crazy. I think they should keep Chubb, but we'll see what happens. Everybody's got a different theory every 5 minutes. Some people say 1 minute. That's funny. I hear it. That's one thing with Browns fans that always gets me, like especially certain Browns fans that love Kevin Stefanski, and I like Kevin too. But some of these people that are just like so bent hell out of shape and all this stuff about keeping everything the way it is, and we can't mess with anything. This year was great, and we can't mess it up. We got to keep everything the same. And I'm just like, well, they lost 45-14 to the Texans, to a rookie head coach and a rookie quarterback. It's not even that they lost either. Like, somebody left a comment like, what do you mean that speaks volumes that they lost to C.J. Stroud? You know how great he is? And I'm like, we know how great C.J. Stroud was, buddy. But my point was, it wasn't that they lost. You forgot to mention they lost to a rookie head coach. Kevin Stefanski's in his 4th year already, going this season with a first year of his coaching career, won a Coach of the Year award, has made a playoff, won a playoff game, Now, granted, he wasn't there. He was in his basement when they won the playoff game. But granted, he's had experience in the playoffs. Almost beat the Chiefs. But they looked. It's not that they lost. They looked unprepared. And they got out coached, outplayed, out prepared, out schemed, out everything. And a lot that game really did say a lot to me. And I stand on that because that's where it matters most. You don't get paid. You know what? He did what he was supposed to do. They made the playoffs. They did what they were supposed to do. I get with all the injuries, and I think he deserves a lot of credit this year for what he did, dragging that team. That team bought into him. They didn't quit on him, and they stayed with him through all the injuries, and they got to the playoffs still. But if you go back and look at a lot of those games were against teams that were out of the playoffs, teams with crappy QBs and crappy defenses. They did what they were supposed to do with the roster they have. Even with a lot of the injuries they have, they still have one of the better rosters in the league, most talented rosters in the league. We've been saying that for the last 4 or 5 years now. So it just hasn't fully come together. And I think too, why I'm saying he needs to give up play calling is because I think that playoff game showed why. And I think why getting Deshaun Watson back to his full strength, I think Deshaun needs to have a separate coach, the offensive coordinator who calls the plays, who can fully key in on Deshaun and that offense. Because people don't understand, if you've never been on a sideline as a player, as a coach at any level, you don't understand the responsibilities that a head coach has. And it's a lot that goes into it. A lot. And I reached out to a coach yesterday and wrote down some notes here. Some of this is my observations as well from my playing experience and people I learned from. And I learned from some great players and former players and coaches. And but I reached out to a coach yesterday who was a 3-time national championship coach at the Division I level, and I asked him, and I said, you know, I hit him up with a question, and I said, hey, what makes a good offensive coordinator? Number one, but also, are you a fan of a head coach calling plays? And they gave some pretty interesting some answers to me. And one of the first part about what makes a good play caller is, number one, understanding the game at a really high level. Number two, what are you trying to get done? In terms of what are you trying to get done that game? Understanding what you need to do, how you need to attack defense, what their looks are, the fronts, what our splits are going to be, a lot of the details, cadences, tempo, football. Then it also comes down to personnel, the type of personnel you have. And a lot of that goes on the GM in the NFL. So it comes down to personnel, but also finding ways to get your great players the ball in their hands in the positive. And wait, what did he say? Sorry, I'm right this down. He said finding ways to get great players the ball in their hands that fits their skill sets, their strengths. So, for instance, if we asked Amari Cooper, right? Amari Cooper's our best receiver on the team. Amari Cooper's a great route runner. Could run any route, basically, especially the ones in the middle of the field or, working towards the middle of the field off the sideline, comebacks, quick slants. Amari can run a lot of those quick routes, and he's great at creating separation. He's just an awesome route runner. But Amari is not like a burner. Now, every now and then, from a great play call, which you saw like at the Texans game this year, Amari can beat somebody over the top because he catches the defense lagging. But he's not a guy that's consistently you're going to send on fly routes. He's not a burner. That's why you went and brought in a guy like Marquise Goodwin at the beginning of the year, last spring. But it's like if we asked Amari Cooper to, run 6 fly routes in a game, it's probably not going to work because it's not a good play call. You know what I mean? You want to get Amari the ball in different ways. Same thing with David Njoku. David's the guy you want to get him the ball in space. Let him get the ball and let him get out in space because his yak is unbelievable. If we ask David to run certain routes and do things constantly in a game that doesn't do well, it's not going to work. So, but again, that falls back on the play caller. And so those are some of his points he gave to me about that. And also he said, what are some reasons why you don't want to, why I asked him, are you comfortable? What's your opinion on a head coach calling plays? And he wasn't really a big fan of it, to be honest with you. And I'm not either. And I don't like where the NFL is actually trending in this way in terms of all these new, really young offensive mind guys taking over as head coaches, not only as head coaches of teams, but calling the plays too. And NFL's a copycat league, but I don't think it's working that well. That's why we're seeing so much turnover and change so much every offseason. Yeah, there's some teams that are making their teams might make the playoffs, but they don't. It's all about what you're doing in the playoffs. If our goal is just to make the playoffs every year, then Kevin shouldn't have fired anybody. They should have kept AVP in there and everybody in it because they would have made the playoffs next year probably. That's easy now with 7 teams. Make a wild card, especially if you got a shitty schedule. I don't think. But is that our bar? Is just to make the playoffs? But again, I think that's why a lot of these other teams look at the Dolphins. That's probably as far as the Dolphins ever going to go. I mean, Mike McDaniels just let go of Vic Fangio, a legendary defensive coordinator, because he wants more. He wants more quote rah rah on the sideline. I mean, what in the hell are we talking about? I mean, and Mike McDaniel. Hello, I mean, really, people. I mean, what are we talking about? But like, anyway, but it's just not. I don't think it's the league's. That's not a good trend. I know people are going to say, "What about Sean McVay and Andy Reid?" Well, I'm going to get into that here in a little bit. We'll talk about why they've been able to win a Super Bowl for Sean McVay, and why Andy Reid's been able to win a Super Bowl. And I'll even give you Doug Peterson when the year they won in Philly as well. But there's anomalies there with all 3 of those guys and why they were able to have success as play callers and head coaches. And that's only 3 names out of what seems like the hundreds of guys we're hiring now in the NFL to be head coaches and play callers that aren't working out. But some of the points this coach gave me about why it's not a good idea to be a head coach and a play caller at the same time is he said, number one, you don't want to watch your play caller. You don't want your play caller to feel emotional when he's calling plays. A head coach's job, he has so much to manage, but he's very emotional. A head coach usually, not in terms of like on the sideline go, but he has to get the guys up and get them going. Like he has to get guys up. He has to motivate the whole team. It's his team. And before a game, there's a lot going on as a head coach. On both, you got to manage everything. You're dealing with coaches. There's a lot of high emotion. You have a lot to manage. You're a CEO, and so. But your offensive coordinator, you don't really want your offensive coordinator to be emotional in his play calling. Yeah, he may understand momentum. Obviously, that's different. That's separate, though. If there's a momentum, like we're running the ball at a high rate, after 6-7 yards of carry, then you see that you keep running the ball. But you don't do it off of emotion. You know what I mean? You want your guy to be calm, laser focused, and to be a chess player. That's what he is. He's playing chess. Your offensive coordinator has to be able to play chess. I think that's why too you see a lot of offensive coordinators up in the booth because they can be separate from the field. They're up in that quiet booth, and they can just lock in and laser in on what the plays they're calling. But also too, the momentum has to be calculated, and so you get a feel for it. But you're not going off of emotion. You're not going off of players get emotional as being a former player, especially as an offensive lineman. When I played center. Times we were running the ball and smashing it down to throw. We're like, man, keep running that motherfucking ball. Like, let's go. And then, but the coach might say, hey, let's hit him with the play action now or something. Or let's hit him with a deep ball here. We're gonna catch him off guard. I'm like, all right, but and the coach was right. But I think too, Stefanski has had to been the best play caller, or has had to been the play caller here recently because he's the only best player caller we had on the staff. I think Stefanski's probably a better play caller than Alex Van Pelt. I don't know what Alex Van Pelt. He doesn't really have much history as a play caller. I think he's a good offensive mind. I think he's a really good coach, and I think he will get probably his chance to really call plays the way he wants to coming up with another team. I think the Raiders are interviewing him, but get a shot. But I think Stefanski's been the best guy we've had, but I think we've only seen it go so far for a reason, which is my whole point of why I think Kevin needs to give up play calling. Because I think it's going to help them to elevate, but also it'll help Deshaun more than anything, which will ultimately that's what's going to help this offense and this team elevate. And getting a fresh set of lens in here, and then a fresh mindset, a fresh offensive philosophy in here. But also, too, people don't understand how much a head coach has to deal with, like I said, on a sideline. You have so much. The head coach deals with everything. And I think if you're just if you hire an offensive coordinator, let's say Kellen Moore, who I really like, out of all the 5 of the candidates we've interviewed, with his experience he has, the quarterbacks he's worked with, he's shown success. I actually thought Dallas got worse when he left. Um, when he was calling the plays in Dallas, one of their seasons, I think they were like top 10 in NFL history all time in like yards per game or something like that in the season, or some crazy, or points or something. I can't remember the exact stat, but he's proven. And Kellen Moore's also played quarterback at the highest level in the NFL. So he understands, as a guy who's had experience playing, he's been a starter at times in Dallas. Um, Kellen understands the flow of the game. He's been out there, so he can relate to Deshaun better than anybody. So that's also very important. Communication has to be the best it can be. And so, but your offensive coordinator, see, when you're a head coach, it's hard for the preparation. I think this is why we saw this in that Texans game. Why the preparation looked so bad, and why I think the Browns at times in Stefanski's tenure, especially since Deshaun's been here, has been kind of up and down, very inconsistent. They go good for stretches and they go bad for stretches. And I just think your head coach, when he's trying to manage all this stuff and he has to put together the offensive game plan, yeah, he has coaches he can lean on, but he's the guy calling the plays. He has to make the decisions. It's just a lot to handle. It's too much to put on the head coach's plate. And I don't think the Browns are in a position right now where they can have that anymore. And like I said, only very few have actually shown success to win a Super Bowl doing so recently. And so, um, but another point that gave to me too is when you have an offensive coordinator, well, his whole job is just the offense. He has a smaller plate than the head coach. He can hone in on everything on the offense and every detail. The meetings are so, the meetings with the quarterback and with the team, with the offense, and he can just hone in. His whole job is the offense. That's all it is. And so it actually makes better product. It's better for the offense. And from my experience, well, I remember, like on the team, we won a national championship. Our offensive coordinator, who was our coach, he had 2 guys that ran the whole defense. He never worried about defense. That was their job. But we were able to hone in more offensively. So when I would come off the sideline, he would ask me and the quarterback, what do we see out there? We would sit and talk for 5-10 minutes while the defense is out on the field and talk about what we're going to do next when we go back out there. I mean, there's more that communication during the game when the offense is on the sideline between the head, especially between the quarterback and the play caller, is very important. But keyword there, not just the OC, because Van Pelt will sit there with Deshaun and they'll go over they just sit there and go over the tablet and just basically rewatch the plays and what they could do better. But when you're sitting there with an offensive court with the play caller and the quarterback, that's how you make adjustments during the game, not just at halftime. And you go back to the Super Bowl when the Patriots beat the Rams in 2018, and you can see it in the NFL films. That was a slugfest game, defensive match. But Josh McDaniels, who was the play caller, sitting there on the sideline collaborating with Tom Brady, they found a way at the end of the game through the adjustment they made in the middle of the fourth quarter to work down the field on a certain personnel and score a touchdown that basically won them the Super Bowl. And so that communication to me is very important. But when a head coach is trying to call the plays and manage the team, I think it's too much. And only few have done it. You look at the Eagles with excuse me, with Doug Peterson. I need some water. It's a little dry in here. It's a little dry. The change of weather here in Northeast Ohio, especially in the wintertime, get your sinuses up and stuff. That's why it's important to take your vitamins, drink your water, get good sleep and exercise, eat well. But not to get all, health kick on you guys, but sometimes I need some water while I'm doing this. But back to my point. Look, you look at the 3, let's go to the Super Bowl winners. Let me go to this. So let's go to the last 10 years of Super Bowl winners, shall we? And if we look here, let me go full screen for you guys. There we go. All right. So let's start from here on down, right? We don't need to see these ads. Hold on. All right. Fair use. So we start here with Baltimore, right? with Joe Flacco. What did Baltimore have? They had an offensive coordinator and a guy in Joe Flacco who was a Pro Bowler, who was a great arm and a great quarterback. You go to Seattle here. Russell Wilson, great quarterback, who also had a play caller. Tom Brady with a play caller. Peyton Manning with a play caller. Tom Brady with a play caller. Now I'm going to go back to Philly here in a minute. No, actually, we'll go to Philly now. Philly. So Doug Peterson was the head coach and the play caller. But Doug Peterson also had Frank Wright as his OC. Frank Wright. And also, if you go back and I reread it today, Frank Wright also was more involved with the play calling than people thought. That was proven in articles after that Super Bowl. They kind of put it out there. But if you look at Doug Peterson this year with the Jaguars, he had Press Taylor, right? A younger offensive coordinator. But I don't think Press Taylor and Doug Peterson this year, with Doug Peterson calling the plays in Jacksonville, did not go very well because it was a younger coach with trying to help collaborate with Doug Peterson, an older coach. And you saw the result. It didn't really work well. But when he had Frank Wright, an older coach, experienced guy who's been a head coach now twice since then, it worked. But that was one time. And that was more of a defense with, guess who? Jim Schwartz as the coordinator. But if we continue on down there, like I said, that Super Bowl right there, New England versus the Rams, it was Tom Brady and Josh McDaniels with a play caller as the offense coordinator. Andy Reid. And then we go down, Tom Brady in Tampa with a play caller. And then now let's go to Andy Reid or Sean McVay here with the Rams, and then Andy Reid again. So what does Andy Reid and Sean McVay have in common? Well, both of them are head coaches that were play callers in those Super Bowls. Now, but I think the Rams, though, I don't think every team, though, can say that we can do what Sean McVay did with the Rams, because the Rams spent so much money on that team that year. They were $9 million over the cap, and they pretty much gave up every first-round pick and draft pick they had, adding Odell Beckham in the middle of the season and all that stuff. I mean, that's kind of like a one-off, to my opinion. I don't think just because people say, well, Sean McVay did it. Yeah, but they spent all that money and gave up all those draft capital. They went all in for one season. And I think Sean McVay is a better coach than a lot of these other guys that are trying to do what he's doing. And then we move on to Andy Reid. Andy Reid didn't start calling plays as head coach till the age of 40. And that was when he got hired with the Eagles. And back then, that was considered young. And so, back then, that was considered young. But also, I'm trying to pull up here on my phone. You know what Andy Reid's coaching staff was, though? When he was in Philly? He had one of the greatest coaching staffs of all time. Leslie Frazier, Brad Childress, Juan Castillo, John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Ron Rivera, Pat Shurmur, and Steve Spagnuolo, and Doug Peterson and Eric Bieniemy on his team as players. He had one of the greatest coaching staffs ever assembled. And that first year, they lost 11 games. And then eventually down the road, they turned around and made a Super Bowl. But still, if you look at the coaching staff he had, all those guys eventually became head coaches and great play callers at some level. Steve Spagnuolo, great DC, Eric Bieniemy, both won Super Bowls as coordinators. So, you know what I mean? But again, you're seeing the point. And Andy Reid also has Patrick Mahomes. He's older now. He's more experienced since he's went to Kansas City. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't win his first Super Bowl till 2019. That's almost 20. It's 20 years since he got hired as a head coach, as being a play caller and a head coach. And it took him 20 years to finally win a Super Bowl doing so, with a generational talent Mahomes and a future Hall of Fame tight end and receiver at Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And he also had Steve Spagnuolo on the other side as well. So there's not really a lot of evidence that I don't think the only evidence that shows of recently of a head coach calling plays in the team winning a Super Bowl, they all have either older veteran coordinators with them, like Frank Wright with Doug Peterson. Like the Rams, they go all in for a season and basically give up their whole franchise to win a Super Bowl. Or like Andy Reid, it took him 20 years to do so until he found a generational talent at quarterback And he also had a veteran coordinator in Eric Bieniemy, and with Steve Spagnuolo, and with two great weapons on the outside who are future Hall of Famers. But that doesn't mean everybody else should do so. And it's like in basketball. We saw with the NBA. Well, I think the NBA kind of went to shit a little bit, the product in the last 5 years, is because when Golden State came out with Steph and Clay and started shooting all those threes, and they went and got Kevin Durant, and they really started jacking up more threes. Everybody else in the league tried doing the same thing. Remember, it was the analytics thing. It's either threes or layups. Threes, and you got to shoot a lot of threes. Threes. You need to be jacking up so many threes a game. But what people didn't realize was, especially people that never played the game or don't understand it, they're just analytic people trying to get involved in the game so they can sound smart, is you don't have Steph Curry, you don't have Klay Thompson, and you don't have Kevin Durant. And also, a lot of it, too, is their system that Steve Kerr instilled. And a lot of their system that they ran in Golden State, a lot of it, you have a guy like Draymond Green as well, who could be a playmaker at the 4, was kind of similar to what the system Rick Adelman ran in Sacramento when they had Chris Webber, who was a passing 4, and all those great shooters. But you look at what the NBA did. They tried to copycat the Warriors, and all these teams failed miserably. You look at the team that won the championship last year, Denver Nuggets, with a post player as their best player, and Jokic. Because Mike Malone's a smart coach. And they're a smart franchise, not trying to be like everybody else. They're going to find their way to do it. They understand that we don't have Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant. But the same thing applies here. Not everybody has Patrick Mahomes. Not every team's going to go all in for a Super Bowl in 1 year and basically sell the franchise to win a Super Bowl like the Rams. And not everybody's going to have that one magical season like the Eagles, where they also had Frank Wright, a future head coach, as their coordinator. An experienced guy, older guy at the time as well. And so I think they should hire Kellen Moore, and I think they should if they can, I think Kellen Moore's the best fit out of the 5. I think Kellen Moore, with his experience as a play caller, and he's worked with quarterbacks with similar to Deshaun's skill set, the way with Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, guys who could sit in the pocket and throw, but also have some athleticism, can move their feet a little bit. I actually thought Dallas got worse when he left, to be honest with you. I thought when he was there, I think I read a stat yesterday that they had like a top 10 historic all-time offense in terms of like yards per game in a season or something like that. One of their seasons, it was I can't remember the exact stat, but they were pretty damn good when he was there. And when he left, I don't think they've been the same since. And you look at McCarthy this year trying to call plays, failed miserably. Kind of looked like us in the wild card game. Or their first game of the it was the wild card weekend. Kind of similar to our result. Looked unprepared. Not a lot of adjustments going on, because it's not. And I think the Browns are in a situation where they have to win now, which was my point in the video Monday. They have to win right now. You can't repeat what happened this year next year. The same result. You're going to start losing guys. You think Myles Garrett's going to stick around with this? Now the heat's really going to be on Deshaun Watson, and everybody's going to blame him. It's all his fault. We got to get him out of here. What a waste of money. Other guys are probably going to want to leave too. And now you're in a real bad situation. Now you're kind of looking at where the Guardians are, to be honest with you. I mean, my gosh, you want to talk about a team that has no enthusiasm from a fan base right now. Look at the Cleveland Guardians. No further than them. I mean, but again, that's, they have an ownership over there that, it's for actually, there's a good friend of our family, really good friend, that told my dad one time that he's good friends with the Dolan, really good friends with the Dolans. And one of the Dolans told him one time that Mr. Dolan, their only goal is to make the playoffs so they can get the TV revenue, and doesn't seem like their long-term goal is to be in Cleveland. That's what I've heard. That's just rumor speculation, allegedly, so I don't get flagged or sued or anything. But I'm just telling you, for somebody that knows the Dolans really close. But my whole point of that is, though, are we really trying to go all in? Because you don't want to be the Guardians, right? a team that they won't spend money, not really much enthusiasm. Because if you repeat what happened this year, next year, you're looking at probably a whole new rebuild. Because I'm telling you, I don't think guys are getting older. Guys are in their primes. Myles Garrett's getting older. David Njoku's getting older. You probably have to move off Deshaun next year if that happens. Because it just time you have to just move on. Nick Chubb might not be here. I mean, there's a lot of new change happening that would probably happen if they repeated. Especially and Kevin would probably get fired if they repeat what happened this year, next year. And so it's kind of a tricky game they're playing with there, in my opinion. And like I said, you go back to rebuilding. You want to go back to 0-16, 1-15, rebuilding, or just not 4 or 5 win team, and we're just looking forward to April, hoping we land a quarterback. That's the saying. You want to be like the Guardians, I don't think so. So, but again, that's why they need to get it right now. And I think what they've been doing, I don't think the system, like I said in my show Monday, the system we've been running does not fit Deshaun and their skill sets. It's an old, outdated Kubiak West Coast system that teams are picking up on. And because it's been around for 20 plus years, they need to innovate. They need to get more creative. They need to put a system in place that fits Deshaun's skill set. But also, I think having an offensive coordinator that could work with who's calling the plays that could work in lockstep with Deshaun every step of the way throughout the whole entire game. And Kevin Stefanski, who proved this year he's a great CEO as a head coach, I think. The team didn't quit on him. He managed that team and held them together pretty well. I think Kevin showed a lot of kind of similar traits that you can see, like what Dan Campbell's doing. And you look at the coaches, right? Dan Campbell, John Harbaugh, Andy Reid. Those are great coaches. But now Andy Reid, like I said earlier, he's a play caller that's proven he can win a Super Bowl because he has Mahomes as well and Travis Kelce. But you look at the other two coaches; they're the CEOs of their team in the playoffs this weekend in the conference championships. Kyle Shanahan's a nice coach. They made the Super Bowl a couple times, but they've never won it. They've always fallen short. Maybe this year that'll change. But Kyle Shanahan, another one, a head coach trying to call plays, he's been very successful. He's probably been the most successful out of the ones that haven't won a Super Bowl trying to do it, of the young guys. But he hasn't won it. He's fallen short. And wouldn't be surprised if they fell short again tomorrow versus the Lions, or let alone they get to the Super Bowl, they fall short again. And also because they don't have a great quarterback. You look at let me go back to that list. I mean, you look at all outside of Nick Foles, every team has had a great quarterback. Started up in 2004, Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, Roethlisberger, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Eli Manning again, Joe Flacco, Russell Wilson, Brady, Manning again, Mahomes, Brady, Matt Stafford is probably going to be a Hall of Famer. You look at his stats, what he did in Detroit. He was just in a shitty team, but he has Hall of Fame worthy career in terms of his resume. He has that Super Bowl. Outside of Nick Foles, who was a one-off, you have to have a great quarterback to win. And so that's why it's important for them to get Deshaun up back to his elite status as best they can. And I think the best way to do that is to have an offensive coordinator, like I said, work with him and let Kevin be more of that CEO, which I think he's done a pretty good job at. And that doesn't mean Kevin's a bad play caller. I think Kevin's actually a pretty good play caller. But like I said, when you're a head coach, like the head coach I reached out to or former coach that I reached out to that said to me, who's been on staffs and been around some pretty great coaches, legendary coaches, it works better when you have a head, especially a younger coach like Kevin, when the head coach is more of the CEO managing the team, and you have a play caller, let's say Kellen Moore, who has experience and who's also a former quarterback as well. Like I said, played on Sundays and has experience behind center in the NFL, so he could really relate to Deshaun better than anybody. He understands the flow and the momentum, like I was talking about earlier, and just like being a chess player, he's seen it. He's been on both sides of it. And so I think that's the best fit for them because they have to win right now. You need to make it as easy as possible to Deshaun, coming off this injury, finally putting the full season together to get back to his elite form and have a full off season. That's what they need to do. And if I were them, I would go all in for Kellen Moore because he's the best candidate out there for them available and for them to get that's available. I think Gerard Johnson's a nice. I really like him a lot, but Gerard doesn't have any experience calling plays. And if you hire Gerard Johnson, I think it's just an upgrade from AVP, but I don't think nothing's really going to change. I mean, and if you do give him play calling duties, do you really want? That's kind of a risk, I think, to ask a rookie play caller in a situation where you need to win right now. You need somebody with experience and somebody that's willing to collaborate with Kevin but most importantly, Deshaun. And like I said, has that experience, but also understand you can hand him the offense. I think Kellen Moore can do that, and that's what I would do. And I think too, like there are some people I've seen some stuff on the internet from people who I respect saying, I don't think Kevin should go out play calling because if he hires another guy in here, there could be some pushback during the game and blah blah blah, and they could run low on the clock and all that. Look, man, any team I've ever been on that's been great. And this coach even pointed this out to me as well. And some of the great teams he's been on that won national championships. Pushback is good. Sometimes a head coach might make a suggestion, but a coordinator will not fire back, but say, "Hey, I think we should do this instead." And sometimes, and a lot of times, the coordinator's right. That you want that. That's okay. That doesn't mean there's. It's not like they're arguing on the sideline. So if Kellen Moore, is calling a play, or let's say Kevin's still calling plays, and let's say they hire Gerard Johnson, or let's say they hire Ken Dorsey, and they're not the play caller, and let's say Ken Dorsey says, "Hey, let's do this," but Kevin says, "No, I want to do this instead." That's not a problem. Or let's say, if Kevin's smart enough guy, which I think he is, he might actually listen to his play caller, or to his not play caller, to his coordinator. Kevin may want to run the ball or might want to throw the ball. The coordinator say, "Hey, Kev, I think it's we're only third in distance, or I'm only 3rd and 2 here in our in plus territory. Maybe let's stick a run in here instead." And Kevin might say, "You know what? Yeah, let's do that." That's okay. And it doesn't mean you're going to run low on clock or anything. If you have good collaboration and you have a good setup in place, it's okay. So if Kevin Stefanski hires Kellen Moore and Kellen Moore becomes the play caller, and let's say we're in the middle of a game, and this happened between Belichick and McDaniels. It's proven. It's on NFL Films. You can go look it up. Let's go type in Bill Belichick mic'd up in one of his games. He did it many times. McDaniels would be calling pass plays, and Bill would be like, "Hey, Josh, let's stick a run in here on this play." So Josh would call a run play. That's very normal and common on sidelines. Pushback is good. Sometimes the coach or the play caller needs to give another opinion. Opinions are okay, and that's why you practice this stuff in practice, and you do all these meetings in the off season. You go through OTAs, you go through installs, you go through walkthroughs, you go through all that shit. Because by the time you get to the game, even if there's a difference of opinion in the game, it's not going to slow you down in your clock rank. It's better to collaborate and call it the right play rather than just throw out a play and it could cost you a game. So understanding football and what goes on sidelines, it's not that big of a deal. But I also think, like I said, I don't think it would be a problem because I think Kevin stepping back and taking more of the CEO approach as the head coach, which I think he even looks like a CEO, clean cut. I mean, that guy, and like I said, he proved this year, and I like Kevin a lot. I think Kevin's a great coach. There's been no criticism for me about Kevin Stefanski. I just think I'm giving an observation what I think is best for the Cleveland Browns. And what's best for the Cleveland Browns, number one, is getting Deshaun Watson back into his elite form. And number two, what are ways we can assist him? Well, it's by evolving the offense and building a system more that evolves him and gets the players. And because the better Deshaun is, the better the rest of the team is going to be on offense. And really the whole team in general. And the Browns haven't had that complementary. Now, Joe Flacco did it a little bit, but I think Joe Flacco still showed his age at times, turning the ball over. And it was a very vanilla offense. And you saw what happened there. the last game of the year would have mattered most, fell flat, and that's why you still want to go with Deshaun. But that's my opinion on it. I think they should hire Kellen Moore, and I think Kellen Moore is the play caller. Kevin should give up play calling to Kellen Moore, and let Kellen Moore and him and Deshaun and Kevin all collaborate on a system, and everybody be like-minded, right? You just hired Deuce Staley, who's a great running back coach. You got, I think, the young guy we got from Tommy Rees from Alabama, nice, up and coming coach. So you have a lot of new opinions, and I think that's good. They needed that new philosophy change, and I think that's what they're doing. I think Kevin's a smart enough guy, and the organizations realize that this is what's best for the team right now. And kudos to them. They're doing the right thing. You know what I mean? They're doing what they should be doing. And they understand what next year means. And they can't repeat the same result. And so that's what I would do. I think I laid out today plenty of examples. And I'm sorry if some things that make sense. I tried the best I can. But that's my theory or my reasoning why I think Kevin should give up play calling and why they should go after a guy like Kellen Moore, most importantly. It has to be a guy like Kellen Moore to do it. If you hired, like I said, if you hired Gerard Johnson or Andy Dickerson or Ken Dorsey, who got fired from Buffalo, and they got better when he left, so I'm not really that high on that one, to be honest with you. Well, if you hired Gerard Johnson, I like Gerard Johnson. I don't think it's a bad hire. I think Gerard's a great coach. But if Kevin's going to keep play calling and Gerard will just be there to maybe give him some opinions, I don't know if that's going to work because we've seen this style of setup here. And I laid out today why I think it doesn't really, and the coach I reached out to, why I don't think it's as effective and why I think maybe they need to go the other route, more of why Dan Campbell, you see a guy like Dan Campbell. Look at D'Amico Ryans. D'Amico Ryans has a offensive coordinator working in lockstep with CJ Stroud. And people wonder why CJ Stroud looks so good as a rookie, not because he's so talented, because he's in a right setup. He was able to get comfortable. They had great coaching around, and Gerard Johnson was his quarterback coach, and they also had a great offensive coordinator. Look at what the Lions are doing. Ben Johnson, what he's done with that offense, he's able to work. He's able to hone in on that offense. And Dan Campbell's the CEO, and I'm sure. And you watch Dan Campbell may give some suggestions because he's the head coach, but it's collaborative, but it works. But he trusts Ben Johnson, and I think Kellen Moore is that kind of guy. You can trust Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore's a great offensive coordinator who, like I said earlier, I don't know why. I don't know if Mike McCarthy was ego. Why, I don't know why he was let out of Dallas. I think that's great. And I like Kellen Moore too, because Kellen Moore is pretty balanced coordinator too. He's 50-50. I like balance. And he usually kind of rides with that momentum. So like when you go back and watch, he was at Dallas, there was games where they were pounding the ball with Zeke and Tony Pollard, and he would see the momentum, not getting emotional, not going real analytical. He would keep riding with the run game, and they would win. And they haven't had that since he left. And I think this year in LA, that was not his fault. That was the head coach who they fired, who was not a great head coach. So, and just the roster was not great as well. Older roster and the cap hell. I'd be interested to see what Harbaugh does out there. I mean, Harbaugh's a great coach, but we'll see how they do this year. But that's my reasoning for it. Now, before I get out of here today, some quick news along with helping Deshaun. Deshaun Watson reaching out, and we said on the show in the last 2 months, Mike and I did, about Tee Higgins coming to Cleveland. And Deshaun and Tee Higgins were teammates in college. Deshaun's last year when they won the national championship. Tee was a freshman. So they got that Clemson connection. But Deshaun is openly now recruiting Tee Higgins to Cleveland. And I think Tee Higgins is what they need. Put Tee Higgins with Amari Cooper and Elijah Moore and David Njoku and a healthy Nick Chubb. And that new offense with Kellen Moore. I think you got something really cooking now. And the Browns need that. They need another receiver because Amari's getting older. They need to have that guy coming up behind him. And I think Tee Higgins has proven he can be number one in this league. He works for the guy I'm really high, ex-player who I really like a lot, TJ Houshmandzadeh, who also is the trainer of Puka Nacua as well. And plenty of other great receivers in the league right now are all trained by TJ Houshmandzadeh, former Bengal. But I think Tee Higgins, can be number one. I think his skill set, he's a bigger receiver, but could really get open, could do a lot of things. He has that number one. He's a great receiver. If you watch Teague, he shows number one capabilities. He's a great talent. Obviously, alongside Jamar Chase. But if I'm the Browns, I could take it from my division rival and put him here in our system with Deshaun in our run game and Amari Cooper, David Njoku. Whew. But even if they don't get Tee Higgins, they got to go out and get somebody. I think they need to get a proven guy like a Tee Higgins and also probably draft one or two guys. Maybe Jacob Cohen out of Arizona, Brendan Rice, Troy Franklin. They need to really up this receiver room. And really, they need to be about at least 4 deep there, in my opinion. Right now, they got 1. Let's say 2. They got 2. Mari and Elijah. But I think Elijah's more of a role player. So they need to get at least another starter like Tee Higgins and probably a rookie that with high talent. I think Brendan Rice. I like the Cohen kid, like I said, out of Arizona. I think he's really good. Where they can, looking at where their picks are, I think those are reasonable picks they can get. So they need to go all in though on this receiver room and finally get it right. But here's Deshaun's pitch. In case you guys haven't heard, I think it's kind of cool. I'll put it up here for you guys. Here's Deshaun Watson's pitch to Tee Higgins yesterday on his podcast again on Lockerverse. So here's Deshaun Watson and what he had to say in his recruiting pitch to Tee Higgins.
Cleveland Browns should go ahead and grab my dog. T.
Hey,
hello.
T. What's up with us, man? We not over here. I know you was down the road with family ties. AB afraid to saying
that chick.
You don't get the ball. We want to pass the ball. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna pass it a lot. You know what I'm saying? To Chubb and Ford.
He ain't gotta leave the state. He ain't gotta leave the state.
And we're gonna take care of you. The Cleveland fans gonna love you. They're gonna love you to death. And we got the Clemson ties. We didn't get to play with each other, but this is our opportunity. So man, come on over to the land, man. We get lit over here, I'm telling you. You already know what's up.
So that's Deshaun Watson, his recruiting pitch to Tee Higgins. I love it. I think it's great. And like I said, I think they should go all in for Tee Higgins if they can. AB, let's get it done. But that's all I got for you guys today. Love all you guys. Appreciate the support. Like I said, if you're new here, subscribe. If you haven't already, everybody hit the like button for me. All that good stuff. Leave your feedback. What do you guys think? Do you think Kevin should keep play calling? Do you think he should give it up? I gave my opinion on it. Why I think he should. What do you guys think? What's your opinion on it? And come join us on our live streams. We got a special guest that's gonna be joining us soon too from one of the more popular shows around Cleveland. He's gonna come on and give us his analysis as well. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you guys next one. I'm out of here. Go.